Hey everyone, so today's video is just going to be a bit of a storytelling video. There's no video, like I say video, there's no visual in this video. It's really just a story, so think of this like an audiobook. As you know, I am a big writer, but I also like just talking about stories. I haven't written this story, but it's been in my head as long as the character, and it does sort of tie into a fan fiction I wrote about Fleetway, but in this video, I'm going to be sharing my OC, Hearth the Wolf's origin story. And I want to say, before I start, that was not his original name. That was given to him mid-story. This will be explained during the story. Finally, a disclaimer. This is not a story for the faint of heart. If you like dark and if you just like dark, edgy stories, this is a story for you. But if you are put off by things such as trauma or violence, this is not a story for you. With all that said, let's get into it. So, Dreadfang was his original name. And Dreadfang was born on Mobius, actually. Yes, it's a Sonic fan character. He was born of a Mobian mother who was very much a pacifist and unknowingly had married the king of a warrior race type thing. However, they don't care about much. They invade worlds to cause chaos and create bloodshed and violence. That's their whole goal, to fight and kill. They don't care about anything else. So Dreadfang was born of these two beings, a pacifist Mobian mother and a psychotic, super powerful, essentially divine father. Essentially. Not mortal, but essentially divine. And then one day, he had an okay childhood. His father was always trying to subtly train him to be a killer, but his mother would always undo that. Never understood why his father was doing all that. And one day, his father, the king of the Beastborn, got really mad at his mother, who I haven't named because, well, you're going to find out why. And he got angry and murdered Dreadfang's mother. Then took Dreadfang to his home realm, and for 20 years, Dreadfang had to watch as his father and his legion of Beastborn invaded worlds and slaughtered innocents. So, yeah, pretty traumatic. And as he started to get old enough to understand what was going on, which was about when he was 15, and he realized what he's seen for the past 10 years, he made a vow to himself. When he was old enough to escape that realm, he would find where his father was headed to next and work with the inhabitants of that world to destroy his father. And then he had to go through another 5 years of watching the bloodshed before he gained the power to create portals to other worlds. Which he then did just before his father invaded Mobius. Well, his father had already started the invasion, but mid-invasion he had gone to Mobius to help them bring down his father. He had to watch part of this invasion, so he knew who he was supposed to go and aid. Fleetway. And when he met Fleetway, he didn't waste time. He got right down to the nitty-gritty, and he said that he knows they probably don't trust him. He came through the same type of portals as the creatures trying to destroy their world. But he then went on to say he knows the weaknesses of their enemies, and if they are to have any hope of winning, they don't have a choice but to trust him. He also explained how his whole goal is to stop the Beastborn, the name of the creatures invading their world. And then he told Fleetway, and the part with Fleetway and all this is where it kind of intersects with the fan fiction I wrote. He told Fleetway about how to defeat certain Beastborn. Then came the time to explain the Juggernaut and the King. The Juggernaut takes a lot of inspiration from Bloodborne. However, the Juggernaut was known to be a highly powerful warrior with no known weakness. There are other very powerful Beastborn like the Teletroops who are pretty weak up close, but if they manage to get a hold of your mind, it's over. There was the drones, which are basically scouts, and there's a few Beastborn I came up with, but that's in the fan fiction, which I will also share one day. So after talking over it with Fleetway, it was time for them to confront the king and all of his warriors. Which they had made sure to go where it was open, and they chose a meadow. They chose this big meadow, and just it was a expanse of grass and not much else. But then when the Beastborn showed up, they saw every type of Beastborn, as well as the Juggernaut and the king himself. And I explained in the story, the king looked honestly really hideous. Takes a lot of inspiration from the Pirates of the Caribbean's Davy Jones, as well as Devil May Cry 5's Urison. Just this really hideous mass of things like barnacles and tentacles, tendrils coming out of his back, which, yeah, there's also a little bit of prototype inspiration in there. And he was just like this hideous monster with an enormous sword. For a majority of the fight, the king stood back and let his warriors do the fighting. But when the whole group, which Fleetway had met up with people like Sonic and Amy, who would not leave Fleetway alone about all the times he tried to hurt Sonic. Of course, I mean, it's Amy. And Tails, and there was quite a few of the famous Sonic characters. They were all there to fight the Beastborn, including Eggman. But finally, when Dreadfang and Fleetway worked together, they were actually able to defeat the Juggernaut. When the Juggernaut went down, the king finally stepped into battle. And he was doing a lot of damage to Fleetway and Dreadfang, who were both kind of shredding his forces. I don't want to really spoil too much of the fight, because I'm also going to be sharing the Fleetway fan fiction, where I go into a lot more detail about the fight and sort of what the king looks like, all that. Which it took a lot, including Dreadfang's most powerful ability and Fleetway ascending past super form to finally take the king down. And just before the king attacked, he tried to convince Dreadfang to rejoin their side, saying, like, you know where you belong, which Dreadfang then responded with, yes, I know where I belong. You have traumatized me for 20 years. I belong alongside Fleetway and his friends to kill you. And he screamed this at his so-called father. Which, keeping in mind, the king didn't do anything for his son. He basically turned his son into a weapon. Which backfired as they, after a long fight, managed to finally defeat and kill the king. After which Dreadfang lost most of his powers as they came from the king himself. But the Beastborn were obliterated because they lost their king. And then here comes Ebony, my version of Ebony, who explained where she was, why she couldn't help them fight, what her part in this prophecy was. And then, with the fight over, Mobius safe, Ebony comes out and says, Dreadfang, you are a compassionate person, and we would like you to join our family, essentially. I'm not even going to try to remember exactly what I wrote, but then, and said, and be Fleetway's brother. And after she said all of this, Dreadfang was speechless. And he did say, "Thank you, ma'am. I would like that." So, Dreadfang was welcomed into the family with the sentence, "Well, Dreadfang doesn't really suit you. So instead, how would you like the name Hearth?" After, and which, the reason I chose the name Hearth for him is because Hearth is the closest name I could find to the word heart. And so Dreadfang became Hearth the Wolf and got to experience everything he should have gotten to experience as a kid. He got to have a brother, a caring mother, and he got his wish to live as a normal Mobian. But even though he lost most of his power, he was still able to help Sonic and Tails deal with real threats. He still had some pretty immense strength and speed, as well as the magic he had learned. And Ebony taught him more Mobian magic. And yeah, that is Dreadfang's origin story. Well, Hearth the Wolf's origin story. Dreadfang was his original name. Like I said, not really a story for the faint of heart. Very, very dark. Just a short story. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I have an idea of a couple people that might watch this, but I can't really say for sure. And that is the story of my OC, Hearth the Wolf.